let's get the October 18th, 2021 meeting of the Harris Township Planning Commission meeting started. It's called to order, and do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting in September?
This is Jackie. I'll move.
I'll second that
Okay,
motion.
thank you, Jackie. Kent, that was a second. Any discussion on the minutes this month? You can raise your hand or speak up, unmute yourself and speak up. I hear none. Oh, yeah, Kent.
No, I'm just approving. I thought you were taking them. I
Okay,
thought you were.
no,
Oh,
so, yeah, all those in favor of approving the minutes from last month. Aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public comment. Are there members of the public who are here who have something to address with the commission that is not on the agenda? Because if it's on the agenda, we'll just allow time for you when those items come up.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, great, thank you. So tonight's agenda is pretty straightforward. A motion, please, to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Amy. Second.
Second, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. All those in favor of approving the agenda for October 18th, aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? All right, thank you. Planning Commission business, we have some committee stuff. We have a preliminary development plan to go over and some other committee things that'll come up later, and then a review of an ongoing matter. I think this is gonna be a pretty straightforward and hasty, brief meeting is a better way to put it. I am happy to report that we have a nominating committee. 2 people have agreed to serve on that for next month. If it's okay, Amy, for me to just go ahead and get that moved ahead. Amy Lorick and Bob Igo will serve as the Planning Commission's nominating committee for the upcoming year. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Bob. Any other members want to comment or have any questions or discussion about that, or staff? Okay, moving on to discussion item around the Bowl Beer Works Incorporated Preliminary Land Development Plan. Todd, I think this is your briefing for us and review, so have at it, please.
Hey, on August 24th of this year, staff received from Gordon Kaufman a preliminary land development plan for the construction of a brew pub on a portion of the Bowl Mansion and Museum property. The plan proposes to build a new structure on the piece of property between the cemetery and Old Bullsburg Road while preserving the existing structures on that section. A parking lot and stormwater facilities are proposed. 2 reviews of the plan have been completed, the second of which was included with the agenda as well as sheets from the plan. If the Planning Commission is satisfied that the plan has progressed sufficiently through the review process, movement to the November Board of Supervisors agenda is appropriate. 4 waiver requests have been submitted and they must be considered. They are 11-2.3, the applicant would like to not have to follow the 2-step review process. That's a preliminary plan followed by a final plan. 11-3.1, the applicant requests that 1 sheet of the plan set be allowed at a scale smaller than the 1 inch equals 50 feet requirement in this ordinance. 11-4.5.a, the applicant requests that the existing on-lot septic systems on the property be allowed to continue to be utilized until such time, excuse me, that they no longer function, at which time the systems will be replaced by a public sewer. Harris Township requires that properties developing within the public sewer service area be served by public sewer. And 13-3.4.c.6, the applicant requests a waiver related to stormwater recharge volume requirements. All of these requests are further described in a memo from the applicant dated October 6th that is included with the agenda. Staff supports 3 of the requests, but does not support the request to allow the plan to be reviewed in 1 step rather than 2. The ordinance contains criteria for plans to be considered quote unquote minor that permits a 1-step review process, and this plan does not meet those criteria. The municipality's planning code sets forth the form that plan reviews must follow, and the two-step process in our regulations mirrors those standards. Chapter 11 includes the minor plan exception for those plans that are the simplest and least impactful and that do not propose, quote, the installation of streets, off-site water and sewage facilities, storm drainage facilities, curbs, or sidewalks, unquote. Excuse me, staff's recommendation is: 1, move to provide recommendations regarding the 4 waiver requests to the Board of Supervisors, and 2, move to recommend approval of the Bowl Beer Works Incorporated preliminary land development plan contingent upon satisfactory completion of all outstanding review comments from the principal planner, the township engineer, and the zoning officer.
Thank you, Todd. Staff, does it make sense before we have planning commission members ask questions or opine on this to have the developers and their representatives make comments or ask questions or otherwise?
Sure.
Okay. Gordon, nice to see you again, and others. Thank you for coming. What would you like to add to Todd's briefing, please?
Thanks very much. It's great to be here. I think I'll just turn it over to my civil engineer, Tim Deal. If you'd like to make any comments about that. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name's Tim Deal. You may recall we did submit this as a sketch plan application several months ago. So this isn't the first time you guys are seeing it. I know the layout was just the bones at that point. Now it's a fully designed plan. Thank you for entertaining us tonight. I fully endorse Todd's recommendation for approval with the waivers, with the exception, obviously, we would like to have the preliminary plan waived. I know Todd has described how it's written. I have submitted plans in numerous occasions like this, where it's a land development plan that's not constructed in multiple phases. So basically, by not granting the waiver of the preliminary plan, you are going to see more or less, there's really no substantive design comments on this thing. You're going to see the exact same plan with the word preliminary replaced by the word final. And that's why I think that if this plan has been designed to both the preliminary and final specifications of the ordinances, like I note, most of these comments are administrative in nature. In fact, we're prepared to resubmit the plans that address the outstanding comments to the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. And I just don't want to waste anyone's time when you're not going to see any substantive changes to this plan. It's basically going to be replacing the word preliminary with the word final. And that's all I would like to add. If you have any questions, I'd certainly love to entertain them.
So Chris, if I could just speak to that real quickly. That's pretty much what happens with every plan, including our plan for our maintenance facility. The preliminary plan and the final plan should actually mirror each other, but getting your preliminary plan approval allows you to do work under that preliminary plan so you don't have to post as much surety. So that's why a lot of developers do take advantage of that. So it's consistent with the way we treat every developer in Harris Township, unless it meets the criteria like Todd described for a minor plan. And again, it was what we did with our very own plan that we worked through last year.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who want to comment on this before planning commission members dive in? Okay, I hear none. I see no hands. What do folks think here? I think that, well, let me just ask it that way. Ken,
I'll comment that, I mean, our criteria are what they are right now. And so that's what you need to follow. I mean, I'm not opposed if we want to sometime in the future when we have time, consider an ordinance amendment that would allow for preliminary / final for certain situations. But that wouldn't apply to this plan tonight.
I would add that this is permitted under the PA Municipalities Planning Code. So I don't know if it involves an amendment to your ordinance, but it does state that you can specifically exempt the two-step process.
Mhm. Rich, I'm curious about your views on this with your experience with building and permitting.
I've seen it done both ways. Many municipalities, including the borough and Ferguson Township, view it that you need both a preliminary and then a final plan. But I have seen it done other ways in the past. But if staff is saying that these are our ordinances and this is how it's been applied, I would agree with Kent that, we could take a look to see if there's something that we could do or would want to do to change that in the future, but we should probably take staff's recommendation.
Mhm.
Chris, I would add that I'm aware that there are other municipalities, even in the center region, that allow under certain circumstances the plan to be reviewed in one step. Some of those municipalities also allow the zoning officer to do the signing off on the plans. But their ordinances contain specific regulations that authorize all of that. Ours do not. Another concern I have is currently there is, sort of a line drawn in the sand as to when we allow the one-step plan and when we don't. If we start considering these requests on a regular basis and different lines are drawn, there is nothing in the ordinance to prevent the line from progressing further and further each time. So for those reasons, I would suggest that we follow the procedure that's outlined in the ordinance currently.
Tim, what's the cost in terms of time and, I don't know, material, if you will, for if there's no substantive change from preliminary to final, and there are some advantages to having that done so you can proceed with some things. What's the downside?
I'm just curious, is there
some time?
That's a good point. I do believe you can proceed with earth moving activities under a preliminary plan. I'm just curious, are there any additional filing fees on the municipal level, Todd, for a final plan application?
No, there are no additional fees. The kind of work you can do under preliminary plan approval, once the conditions of approval are met, assuming there are conditions of approval when the board reviews the plan, the kind of work you can do is that work that's directly associated to the public improvements on the plan. You can't grade the property for the site work where you're going to put the building, and you can't grade your parking lot and things like that because those are not things covered by the MPC approval of work under the preliminary plan. You can only do that type of work once the final plan is approved. If everything is in order and the preliminary plan gets approved as expected and the conditions of approval are met in a very short period of time, it's entirely possible, and it's happened many times in the past where the final plan gets submitted almost immediately and it's on the next Board of Supervisors agenda. So it could be anywhere from the following month to 2 or 3 months, depending on how smoothly the process goes after the board issues its conditional approval.
Okay, well, I think we're in a position to have things buttoned up quickly. I know, obviously, with winter approaching, construction may or not be able to proceed. I know Gordy and Laura are itching to get a shovel into the ground on this project. Obviously, there were some substantial delays with the traffic end of things. So we're just trying to save time. I'm not trying to do any shortcuts. This is something I've done in other municipalities, and I understand how the two-step system works sometimes. But again, I typically only see that on large phased plans where there's things may change. Can I inquire, do we need to record this preliminary plan, or do we just end up recording the final plan?
No, once you get the preliminary plan signed by the Board of Supervisors, we ask you to provide a copy of that to us, the signed copy, so we have an official signed copy of the preliminary plan. If you want to provide 2 complete copies when you're getting your signatures on the preliminary plan, that'll save some time. We'll just keep one. But the final plan is the only plan that gets recorded.
Okay, so on a time-wise sense, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 3 working weeks before the planning commission when we had to submit. Is that the same for the final plan, or since it's basically a replication of the preliminary plan, is there any leeway there?
The deadlines are the same. It's 15 business days prior to the meeting that you want to go to. So it's not unusual for a plan to receive preliminary approval by the Board of Supervisors, and by the end of the week of the same week as the meeting, the final plan submitted. That usually permits the board to be the plan to be eligible at the next Board of Supervisors meeting.
I guess my question is, are we too late for the November Planning Commission meeting to
You don't have to
submit?
go back to the Planning Commission. The preliminary plans go to the Planning Commission and the board. Final plans go directly to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, I was not aware of that, so you guys will not be seeing the same plan. Okay. I think with that said, then we'll withdraw that waiver request and we'll meet the preliminary and the final, and we would acquiesce to the rest of Todd's motion for approval.
Tim, could I
All
could I
outstanding
ask that you,
comments?
yeah, could I ask that you put the withdrawal sometime this week in writing so we have that officially?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions, discussion on this?
I have a question, actually, Chris, if you mind.
Yeah. No, fine,
Amy
go ahead.
or Todd, I just want to go back to Amy's comment earlier about the surety and how, the preliminary and moving into the final, how that could change or allow us to kind of home in on the surety. I guess I just wanted a little more clarification on that, Amy or Todd.
So you'll have to provide surety to the township for any of the public improvements that are required. You're allowed under your preliminary plan, and Todd can jump in here, but you're allowed under your preliminary plan approval to start doing some of that work, the earth moving and things, which people in the past have done, so they don't have to post as much surety. Surety, I understand, is a lot different now to get than it used to be. So some folks like to get some of the work started before they go to post the surety. But the surety estimate is something that gets reviewed by the township engineer, and he signs off on your engineer's, estimate before you post it with us.
Okay, that makes sense then. So you get some of the work done, there's less to do, and then therefore less money would have to be posted. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe I had inquired with Jerry about what he considered needed bonding on this thing, and beyond the signage in our driveway onto Old Bullsburg Road, I'm not sure what is deemed a public improvement on this project.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't spoken to him. So Todd, go ahead.
The buffer yard plantings are considered something that are surety items right offhand. Any of the site work that includes the parking lot and all that stuff, the lighting and all that stuff, those aren't considered surety items. But I know you have to post some no parking signs; those would be included.
Water.
The connections for water and sewer, those are considered public improvements. So you could actually, if you can arrange those, you can actually install them before you get the final plan approved. So you don't have to post surety for those. If there's going to be I think there's going to be a stop sign on your driveway coming out onto Old Bullsburg Road. That's a surety item. Things like that, we can get together with Jerry and finalize what that list is prior to you actually submitting the final plan, if you'd like to do that.
That'd be terrific.
And one thing I would add about the surety too is a lot of times people prefer to post the surety because it's a quicker way to get your final plan signed. We can't sign the Board of Supervisors can't sign the final plan until either all the comments are addressed and the improvements are installed, or you post surety in lieu of those improvements. So it's a quicker way to actually get done what you want to get done.
Okay, the only other item I know we have to provide the applicants or the authorized signatory's signature, and I know we provided the paperwork that you forwarded to solicitor. How do we get the fire chief to sign off? Do we need to make an appointment with him to sign the plan?
You just send him a text message and he'll stop and sign it.
Okay, perfect.
He's fairly easy to get in touch with. And if you have issues finding him, just let me know and I'll get to him for you.
How many copies of the plan do you want tomorrow, Todd, that address these comments?
Since it's a revision, I would say you probably don't have to provide any more than 4.
Thank you.
Well, this is educational for many of us regarding the ins and outs of plans and the steps. Any other comments or discussion? Kent?
So I'll just state like I did during the sketch plan stage, I see they've, by the plan, they've agreed to participate in a traffic study in 5 years. But I do have concern with the proximity of the driveway, the closeness of it to the 322 business route, that vehicles might have, if during peak times, like, like a Friday afternoon or something like that, that it might be problematic for cars trying to exit the place, which will back traffic up into the parking lot. And my biggest concern is if it starts inhibiting vehicles from entering the lot, which might spill out onto 322 itself and start backing up traffic there. So I'm just commenting on that. I guess what the note itself acts as an agreement that they will, that they're agreeing to do this so it can be enforced in 5 years to make sure that they do this traffic study, particularly if there's problems.
Mhm.
I'm just making that comment because I'm expecting this place to be popular.
Mhm.
I could see the planning commission going there for that matter.
Monday night, sometime between 8 and 9:30, eh?
Mhm.
Mhm. Thank you, Ken. Duly noted, and important, it may be that getting out of there, although it's a left turn, would be going down Old Rosewood Road to the churches and coming out at the traffic light on Main Street, or excuse me, on Church Street. So, well, developers and engineer, it's exciting to have this project moving forward, and it'll be neat to see things progress down there. Thanks for working with the township on this. Can one of our commission members put this into a motion regarding the now 3 waivers and move to get this to the board, please?
I'll make the motion that we approve the waivers and move this item to Board of Supervisors.
I think
I'll
that
second.
covers it. Thank you,
I'll second
Ken.
the motion
Ken-
with the stipulation that she meant the 3 waivers, not the other.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
The one withdrawn and the 3 others.
Right. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Ken. All those in favor of this motion, say aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. That is moved forward to the Board of Supervisors, and we'll see all of you at another event in the township.
Thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Okay,
you.
great. As they likely click off here, let's move on to commission liaison to the Village Parking Committee and the official map subcommittee. We had some, business timing changes and the like, and so we had to ask a few other volunteers to step forward, and I'm happy to report that Randy has agreed to be our representative of parking, Village Parking Committee, and Rich Manning will join Bob Igo and me on the official map committee. Thank you to Randy and to Rich for stepping up and volunteering in this way. Unless someone else is just angry that they didn't get a chance to serve on a committee and want to shoulder one of these volunteers out of the way. I think that takes care of this. Okay, Amy, do you want to review our recent activities with the Board of Supervisors around rural rezoning and
Yes.
just kind of, again, just lay out what we can expect in November. This, by the way, commission members are not expecting a discussion here. This is just a review of what has transpired and what we can anticipate for next month. But of course, if you have comments or questions, it's perfectly appropriate to bring those up. Amy, please.
Yep. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody for participating in the joint meeting. I know this has been a long process, but I think we're finally starting to perhaps see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't believe it's the light from an oncoming train. So I think we're going to get there. So at the meeting, Supervisor Harden presented his thoughts on how he thought we could move this forward. And there was some consensus that we achieved. The following item we settled, which was that the 7 properties along the western side of Bailey Lane that we had originally proposed going into rural residential will stay in the ag zone. And the reasoning was those properties were largely never developed under rural clustering, open space rural clustering regulations or designated as future residential uses, and they're located outside of the regional growth boundary. So we were comfortable keeping those in the ag zoning. There's some items we still need to talk about, but I don't think we're that far away anymore on these items. With the agritainment, Supervisor Harden had proposed that we pull the agritainment regulations out of the ordinance and work on it separately. But I think that night, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that night we heard that we want to leave the agritainment regulations in the draft ordinance, but there was a strong desire to allow those activities to occur on all of our road networks, not just the arterial roads. So one of the things that we're doing at the staff level is we're trying to figure out, is there a way or how there's a way we could move forward on this, being sensitive to our concerns, which have always just been traffic and noise and disruption to the neighborhood around and disruption to the road network. So we're working on that one. And then we had a discussion about the rural residential district itself, the name of it, the mapping of it. One of the things that came up and one of the things that we've looked at, if we change the name of the district to rural residential, would it impact a property's ability to be in the PACE program and be permanently conserved? And what we found when we looked at that was that though there is you don't get extra points if you're in an ag zoning district, they actually do look at if you're in a rural residential district. So we were looking at that and looking at maybe renaming the district ag residential, ag 1, ag conservation, splitting it, having 2 ag districts. The thought being because one district has properties that were developed under open space rural clustering and we have those regulations in place and they have to follow those regulations. The other properties are properties that haven't developed and we'd like them to use the conservation design regulations when they develop in the future. So we're working on that as well. And then the group also discussed allowing veterinary offices and boarding kennels, farm wineries, and dog training facilities in that. If it stays rural residential, it gets called ag residential in that other district, because right now those are 3 of the 4 uses that you can't do in that district that you can do in ag. So that's kind of where we're at. Mark is not here tonight. He had a senior night for his son for soccer, which is why we're saving this discussion for next month. But if you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions, that would be helpful for us to prepare for next month's meeting when we do anticipate a lengthier discussion on this.
I'll just say I agree with your top of your section comment. It does seem like we're getting closer to some practical agreement on these things, and I think just a little bit more conversation and deliberation will deliver something that will be workable.
I believe Rebecca Langerich would like to make a public comment. Chris, if you would like to take
Okay,
that.
yeah, that's fine. Rebecca.
Hi, I may not be, haven't checked my video here. Here I am. I put some things in the comment because you've heard much of this before and you don't necessarily need to hear it again, but I'm not sure who's going to be reworking. And I want to make sure everyone's aware of the things that that I think are are going to cause problems as far as the ordinance as it's written now being in conflict with state agricultural laws. And so I also support keeping all of the ag land that is ag land in ag, so that it's clear that they can be part of conservation programs. And I think Michael will probably speak to that. But as far as agritainment, you've heard this before, so you don't need, I just want to make sure that you're aware that agritainment is definitely part of agricultural in Pennsylvania on the state level. And the municipalities are set in the state law are to be encouraging agricultural viability. And so to limit it to certain addresses is not going to fly. And all you have to do is to remove the section. You have one particular section, it's identified right here, where you ask for just take that out. You have plenty of requirements that people have to meet in order to do agritainment, to register the event beforehand. All you have to do is take that out. I also think that no amplified sound outdoors is likely to be considered a nuisance ordinance that's now been directed at agriculture. And I think that should also be removed, those 2 points. And then second, Amy, I'm not sure that you talked about this, but we've been pointing out that in the current ordinance, in table 3.1, you've got 20 acres for any new ag land in the conservation, going through conservation subdivision. And yet in the, under the ag district, so down here at the ag, you've got 20 acres for any new ag lot. And that is also in conflict with all these state programs that ask for 10 acres, or some of them have even less if you make certain income requirements. And you've got within the ordinance a statement about 5 to 9 acres could be horticultural only, which would make you assume that 10 acres or more is general ag.
Yes,
So
that's right.
There's an internal conflict with this, and it should be 10 consistently.
We're looking at that to clarify that. We've talked internally, and again, Mark's not here, so I don't want to get into a long discussion about this, but 20 acres to create a new lot under the conservation open space, conservation design regulations, but you can subdivide down and you can do ag on 5 to 9.99 acres. You can do the horticultural uses, 9.99 to above. You can do all your agricultural uses, animals and things.
That's what it says, but the table does not say that. The table says ag is 20.
We'll look at that because again, I think that I think there's a clarification we need to make and a little bit of education, but we'll look at that. It's understood.
Okay, and then either Cindy or Michael, I think also would like to have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you for pointing out those important points. Yeah, someone else raise their hand or unmute and unspeak. Excuse me, unmute and start video. Perhaps not. Kent.
Yes. I was just going to, as I stated at our joint meeting, is I would ask staff to look into seeing if we allow advertisement on properties on non-arterial roads, either in the ag or this rural residential district, if we allow them as some type of a conditional permit, 1-year permit, so that we would have an opportunity to look at that if there was a traffic problem. So I'm just asking staff to look into see if we can do that.
You already have a whole list of requirements that must be met, and they get looked at before it starts. And then if there's any substantial change, there's supposed to be a change, and that's already written into the ordinance.
I think Kent has a good point, which is we don't necessarily want to let this out of the barn and then we have a problem and we have to pull it back. I think we have, and we've talked internally a little bit about this, we have a good framework with our special events registration process that we might be able to tweak a little bit to fit these agritainment enterprises, knowing that a lot of what people think of as agritainment, you're allowed to do under the right to farm law. A lot of these U-pick operations and things you're allowed to do because that's accessory to your farm and that's allowed under the law. So it is a little bit complex because it is a new area, but we are looking at all of this.
So we can look forward to a detailed and deep discussion on this in November. We'll have Mark here, some advanced information and an opportunity to hear from concerned residents and move this ahead if we can.
I think, Chris, we have one more public comment.
Yeah, I can see. Thank you. It looks like another on Rebecca's screen.
Yeah, this is Gene Langridge with Rebecca. So
Hi,
I guess
Gene.
thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So I guess I'd like to ask Kent and Amy how we do a U-pick apple orchard on a 1-year permit.
Well, right now, I believe under the right to farm law, you can do a U-pick operation. The township can't tell you that you can't. If you're growing the apples now, that's something would bring people into your farm. I'm pretty sure under that law, you can do that now.
But if the agritainment is limited to non-arterial road or limited to arterial roads, then
We can't,
I don't understand how that would be how you'd plan that.
the township can't supersede state law. So if you're allowed under the right to farm law to sell commodities and have a U-pick orchard off your property under the right to farm law, the township can't come in and say you can't do it because you're not on an arterial street. That's the confusion with agritainment, because some agritainment, and I think we need to parse this all out, some agritainment is specifically allowed under the right to farm law. And then some stuff, these more event type things, the hay rides, the weddings, that kind of stuff, that falls into like the more agritourism category. And that's the stuff we're trying to look at.
Yeah, I guess I just expect those two to often be packaged together. That's a part of a comprehensive plan that a farmer would go through that might be 4 or 5 years, 6 years in development. But it seems like it's dependent upon a 1-year permit.
We haven't said that. We said we would look at how we could maybe regulate these to see what's going on and step into it. That was one of the ideas. Nothing's set in stone. And that's why we're not really wanting to have this conversation tonight, because we want to do more research and have a bigger conversation next month. It's just all things that we're looking at right now.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
Sorry, I can't get my video camera to work, so you're only getting audio. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Amy, I just want to clarify, if the right to farm laws allow for agritainment and agritourism, so how can the township then require some other kind of permitting if that's already allowed by state law?
So the agritainment stuff, the stuff that's under the right to farm law, that we can't come in and say you can't do it. But weddings, I don't believe, are considered agritainment under the right to farm law. I don't know that festivals and concerts and things are allowed under the right to farm law. So anything that's not accessory to that farm use. And again, that's something that we really need to look at, because we want to make sure that farmers have the opportunity to bring folks onto their farm and kind of capitalize what they're doing within reason, right? We don't want to become, there's a winery I just read about in Sunbury that's having a hot air balloon festival and had 85 concerts this summer. I'm not sure that's the kind of uses we want to have in our, our agricultural districts, but that's the stuff we need to look at and talk about.
It gets to be kind of a slippery slope, because if you have a winery hosting an event like a wedding or any kind of festival is certainly in line with growing wine and, on your farm. So I just don't know who is going to be the person who decides what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Ultimately, the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors will be the ones that will set the policy. And that's why we need to do more research and have more discussion on this. And again, we want to save that for next month when we've had time to do more research on this.
Yeah, it may or may not come down to a situation where a long list of imagined and already existing events are shared. I don't see at this point that we're going to get to that level of specificity, but there needs to be enough clarity that there aren't questions raised every time an event or a special event permit or just an open event at a ag property is being considered. So yeah, work to come on this, and there are a lot of iterations of what could be considered agricultural education, agricultural entertainment, simple farm operations that are open to the public for business. So we will try to be as broad and deep and thorough thinking as we can be.
I would like to suggest that whoever is coming up with that list of what's allowed or what's not allowed, instead of doing that they think, like you said, more broadly. So do we have to stop making, loud noise or turn off lights at a certain time of night? Like, does this activity have to cease by 10 o'clock on weeknights and 11 o'clock on weekends? Do we have to provide for, a plan for traffic or parking, rather than have the township, the municipality, the supervisors, or the planning commission say you can do this or you can't do that? It seems a lot smarter to be broader about, okay, we can't be making loud noise after a certain time at night. We might not be able to shine bright lights. Those kinds of things seem like a better way to manage issues that could become problematic, as opposed to just not allowing certain events. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. And that it does. And that may be the best way to approach it. But until we have a chance to analyze it from a lot of different perspectives, it's hasty for us to say we're going to go that route just now. So we'll have, I'm sure, I anticipate all of you will participate as we discuss this next month, and your input will be really helpful, as it has been.
Is it possible to include farmers in the work that's going on here, in the detail work behind the scenes? Because I thought at this particular meeting, you would be going through some of the details that you might be changing. That's why I gave you some of the detailed information in the chat. And it sounds like it's something that's just going to happen, and then suddenly we'll hear about it at the supervisors meeting and decisions have been made.
No, that's actually not what Chris just said. The only reason we're not talking about this in detail tonight is because our planner is at senior night for his son for soccer. And that's obviously more important than our planning commission. So we pushed this off to the November planning commission meeting, and you guys will be in person at the fire hall. We'd invite you all to come out and have conversations, because the planning commission has to come up with something that they're comfortable with, that then gets passed to the supervisors, and the supervisors will decide how they want to move forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be decided next month. It could be decided in December and move forward to the supervisors in January. It doesn't, we have a joint meeting, the planning commission and the supervisors, in January every year. They could wait and talk with them with their ideas, flesh them out over a couple of months, and talk with them in January at that meeting. So it's not anything that we have a time frame that it has to be done tomorrow. It's not something that we want to rush through. It's something that we want to get right. Certainly, I was going to reach out to Candy Wasson, because Candy is pretty much an expert in these types of issues within our area. So I was going to talk to Candy a little bit. If you have thoughts, and we have noted your concerns that you've brought up about the chart, and I've made a note of that here, but if you guys have other thoughts or things to share, and I had a conversation with Cindy Harding last week about all of this as well, feel free to send all that along, because Mark was looking at some other agritainment ordinances, and we've just been talking internally. That's all we've been doing. I sort of mull this around as I drive all over the place, because that's when I do my thinking, apparently. But we're trying to come up with a way to make this work and to address our concerns, which are traffic, noise, and septic systems. And how do you come up with a plan for that? And I think what Cindy said has some merit with me being more broad. We do regulate outdoor amplified sound with our special events now, in terms of when the sound has to be off during the week and on the weekends. And we've done that successfully with Tussey and other places. So I think we have a framework, but next month is absolutely the time to come with any thoughts or ideas that you have. If there's anything you want me to include in a planning commission in their packet, send that to me and I'll be happy to distribute that to them.
And so, yeah, so next month is just the planning commission, and this will be the main item of our agenda. There may be some other items as well, but you're invited, you're urged to come, and it is a planning meeting, a conversation, a deliberation with your input and others' input. So we just don't have tonight is not designed to advance plans or discuss detailed parts of this. This is just a review of where we have come to this point and what we are anticipating moving forward. And just to repeat Amy's point, is we don't want to hurry. There is no hurry. This is a complex issue that affects a lot of people. And if it's 1 month or 4 months till it gets moved ahead, that's what it takes.
I'm sorry I tuned in a little bit late. I missed the your announcement, obviously, but can you tell me when is the planning commission meeting next month?
Third Monday of the month.
Third Monday. Okay, at 7.
7.
Yep.
Yep.
7 o'clock, and we'll be at the fire hall, or you can participate. I believe you can participate by Zoom.
Mhm.
Anything else on this?
And what is available to the public before the meeting? Just
The
the
agenda.
agenda or any of the background information? Would we need to go into the office or something to see, like if you are saying, well, we've got this ordinance here, or we think we're going to make these changes, how would we find out about, is there a way to know what's going to be presented?
So likely what we'll present is a memo. We'll probably put together some kind of a memo, and we can certainly, that becomes public record as soon as we send the agenda out to the planning commission. So we can certainly send you a copy of that ahead of time.
Okay.
And Amy, would that be available on the township website along with the agenda?
I mean, I could probably do that as well. Yep. We typically, have to put the agenda online, but we could certainly make that available as well.
That seems to make sense. Kent?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, there's no decisions that are made behind the scenes. We ask staff to do some research and to look into things and to come back to us. But the planning commission does generally not see things before the public does. They go before a public meeting, and all deliberation from the planning commission occurs in a public meeting where everyone can be there. So we don't make decisions without public input.
Yep. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on then to the agenda for November. Amy, anything else we would anticipate, or Todd, besides rural rezoning at this point?
Just one item. We got the draft wireless facilities ordinance back
Oh, good.
from the attorney last week. So we'll need to look at that next month as well. Todd and Mark, I just sent that to them. We'll look at that. I don't anticipate that's going to be a long discussion. I think that's just more about getting the amendment ready so the supervisors can take action on that.
Okay, so we should probably have that near the top of the meeting. And
Yeah. And then if we have any plans, Todd, do you anticipate any plans?
None come to mind immediately, but that's no guarantee that there won't be one.
okay. Okay, reports. Moving on to item number 7 here, Center Region Planning Commission. Amy, do you have anything to report on that group?
Yes, on October 7th, there was a joint meeting among the Public Services and Environmental and Transportation and Land Use Committees and the CRPC, the Center Region Planning Commission. So this was 3 different groups meeting. We talked about some of the pressing issues coming up across these different committees, including expanding housing choice and opportunities across the Center region. There is a proposed study that will take place soon, and these are issues to be discussed in depth, and sort of the There is an extensive series of questions to be explored for the study. So this is coming our way, including sort of some changes, notable changes in enrollment and Penn State. So there are some significant things that need to be explored and understood in order to build more. And the change of term is in attainable housing, not just affordable housing. There's also a comprehensive plan update that is coming our way, and this will be this was brought to our attention because there's a new, more focused approach that will organize the plan into future land use, future transportation plan, and community infrastructure. We've got a lot of different aspects of all of those topics happening right now in this region. And so there's going to be, with the update, a reorientation in terms of trying to integrate a lot of different plans across the comprehensive plan. And the next meeting will be in a couple of weeks at the beginning of November.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. We did get an email from George Harrington on the CCMPO technical committee. It focused mostly on CATA matters. Unless anyone has some comments or questions on that.
I can provide a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, Jackie.
That's okay. To do a plug for the Reimagine CATA study, where we're currently working with a consultant out of Ontario, Canada, to take a look at what our transit system is going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years. We're looking at things from, the possibility of bus rapid transit to expanded park and ride lots to mobility as a service options, those kinds of things. So it's a pretty big deal. There is a survey that's open until November 5th. And if I'll put the link on the chat, but it's on our website. We'd love to have your comments included, which would be great. Like George said, this is an unfortunate time to be doing the study because you've probably seen in the media, we're experiencing a severe staffing shortage. We've been consistently cutting service for a couple weeks here. We're also going to have a big service cut on October 25th. And I just wanted to mention that affects the P route, which serves Boalsburg. And as a result, CATA Go microtransit service will continue to operate as it always has this year. But P route service Monday through Friday is going to cease operation at 8 p.m. and Saturday service will be temporarily suspended as well. So we expect these changes to last until the end of the year, until we can get all the drivers that we can get. Right now we're at about 85 drivers, but we need about 20 more. So we're actively recruiting in a situation like a lot of other businesses, that kind of thing. So the consultant that we're working with will do another community input week where they come down early in 2022 to do some different meetings with stakeholders in the community at large, that kind of thing. So I'll keep you updated when that's going to happen.
Okay. Jackie, in addition to putting the address in the chat, could you just email that survey link to the group?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Bob Igo is not here to report on the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I don't know that it met since he last reported to us. We'll have to wait till next month to hear from Bob on what's happening there. Amy, do you want to walk us please through recent actions by the BOS?
Sure. They approved the Lot 1RR Units 3 and 4 preliminary land development plan. We held an open house on the Road Diet prior to their meeting last Monday. We have all the information from that open house plus a comment form and also a link to a SurveyMonkey comment form on our website, and we'd like comments back by October 29th. The public comment is pretty crucial to the Road Diet because PennDOT is very lukewarm towards the project, and they basically have said if there isn't public support for it, they're not going to support it and it won't go any further. So we want to hear from everybody. It's very important that people speak up. And then the supervisors appointed Richard Manning, who's obviously on our call, to fill Bill Wallace's vacancy on the Planning Commission. His alternate position will be filled at the beginning of 2022. We felt it didn't make sense to fill that now when we only realistically probably have 2 meetings left in the year.
When some, new members are appointed, when someone has to step off, like Bill or George did recently, do they just fill that person's normal term, or do they start a new, what it would be, 3 or 4 year term?
No, they fill the unexpired term.
Yeah, okay.
So Richard's term actually goes until, I think it's the end of 2024, because I believe Bill was appointed just recently to another term.
I just re-upped. Okay. Okay. Anything else to go over this evening, or comments or questions? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll,
Thanks,
we'll
take care.
talk.